Okay, let's now focus on some of the big news breaking in the Premier League over the last day or so. Erik ten Hag to Manchester United, the Dutch coach. It seems like he's pretty much confirmed as their new manager. They're going through the final stages of agreeing different financial packages, putting plans in place to announce him as the new full-time coach at Manchester United. Of course, Ralf Rangnick is in interim charge until the end of the season, and then he's going to go upstairs and some kind of consultancy role. Always think of him just having his own office and maybe, Ralph, your computer's set up in the corner and this is your job now. But anyway, it's very exciting, I think, for Manchester United fans to finally see, okay, this is the guy we're going to go with. There's been so much talk about Pochettino, Luis Enrique, so many other names, but all the reports and all the signs are pointing towards Erik ten Hag to become the new Manchester United manager. Andy, I'm going to start with you. What is your overall thoughts when I first say about Erik ten Hag coming in at Manchester United?
Well, I wanted to let's go back real quick to Ralph for just a second, because was it December, November, whenever it was, it was cold outside. When he was brought in, we were very excited about Ralph coming in and the idea that Manchester United were putting together of, we're going to have a line of succession. It's going to be this guy for 6 months. He's going to be involved in picking the next one and putting together the next. And that all sounded really, really good. And that I think that gave Manchester United fans a little bit of hope that they were going to be decently run for the first time in a really long time. Fast forward like 4 months, and all of that goodwill and all of that feel good seems to be gone around Ralph. And it's because of what's happened on the field. It's because of some of the, I don't want to say feuds, but some of the falling outs maybe behind the scenes with a few of the big key players in the team. And now it just feels, like you say, that they're going to put him off into an office in the corner. He's got to do 2 years. We owe him money for that. Then we can get him out. How things change so quickly at Manchester United and can go from so positive to so negative. It's incredible. And so it gives me a little bit of pause for whoever comes in. But for Erik ten Hag, I have 2 questions, and it's not for him. It's for the club. One, what do you want him to do? Do you care about winning, or do you care about building an identity and a style? And 2, how long are you going to give him before you, 1, judge him, and 2, begin to push him out? Because that's what happens with Manchester United managers since Sir Alex Ferguson. It doesn't take long for the relationship to sour, for the view of what's to come to fall out, to fall out of view and start to focus and micromanage. I think that's an issue with Manchester United, is there's too much micromanaging going on and not enough macro. And there's a lot of big problems at the club. And so if they're going to let him bring in the players that he wants and play the style that he wants and give him 3 full seasons to implement, because that's what we're talking about with a squad the size of Manchester United, the price of Manchester United, the players that will need to be brought in, it's going to be a long overhaul. And I just don't know that anybody at the club, save for the manager, has the stomach for how long that might take. And so it almost feels, just given based on the last few months of evidence, whoever goes into that job might be a little bit doomed from the start.
That's a great point, and it segues nicely, Nick, to the question I'm going to ask you. Is he the right man for the job, Erik ten Hag, or is anybody the right man for the job? Does it basically come down to recruitment's got to be better, there's got to be better players there, and a better plan in place? It doesn't just have to be, like we said so many times, this superstar's available, let's get him in and then figure out once he's here where he can play. I mean, is Erik ten Hag the man to bring that all together and focus, or can anyone do that at Manchester United? Is it almost too big of a club and the expectations are too big that they're always just going to be reactive and just chop and change managers as soon as, like Andy said, results don't go well? They have to back someone through those bad spells, right? I just can't see it happening right now the way the club's set up, but it's got to change, hasn't it?
It does. Are you ready for the bald, bearded, ball-controlling manager to get hired at Manchester to try and fix things? Because we've seen this before. He's actually I think he's 6 months older than Pep. He kind of looks like Pep. I think the derbies are going to become very interesting. Do I think he's the right man for the job? I don't know. Like, if the Premier League was an American sports league and we could be confident that there was a suitor out there and they could like trade Maguire for Dutch guy, Ajax center back, guys, help me, that he was there with De Jong. De Ligt, yes. Can he trade him for De Ligt? Can he trade Pogba for De Jong? He loves Sebastian Haller. This guy makes his center forwards get the job done. He developed Haller at Utrecht. They, I believe, were mid-table 2 seasons in a row. He shows up the first year on the job and they finish fifth. His resume is there, but are they going to weather the bad days? They did it with Solskjaer. I mean, I thought it was stupid to do that, but they did it with Solskjaer. I just kind of look at, we've seen what's happened with Arteta. We saw what had to happen with Klopp. We saw what had to happen with Guardiola. You have to let it happen if it doesn't happen right away. And I think this summer should be, who will take Ronaldo off our hands? Who will take Maguire off our hands? That's a big question, by the way. Who is going to give you the value you think Maguire is worth when he's being booed all over England? And I bet you there isn't a team outside of England lining up to give you a lot of money for him. But Pogba, Maguire, Ronaldo, clear it out. Keep De Gea and keep Rashford. And I think it's a big day for Rashford. We should say that. There's so many things to unpack here, but I'm excited for him to get a fresh start because he has gotten a raw deal.
He has. You mentioned a lot of good points there, Nick. And I think if we look at the philosophy and the coaching style and the tactics that Erik ten Hag likes to use, if we just take the example of the last 5 years at Ajax since he took over there, generally they like to play a 4-2-3-1. We've seen that the wingers, obviously Antony and Dusan Tadic this season, like to come inside and create. So they don't really have a lot of width, but they have so many good players on the ball, right? They're always so fluid, comfortable on the ball. And they always seem to have that target forward up top that just holds everything together. Sebastian Haller obviously had a great season for Ajax, and we probably didn't see that coming, right, when he was at West Ham and struggled in the Premier League a little bit. But I think, Andy, for the philosophy and the style of play and the tactics that are going to come into Manchester United, that's important, right? That Erik ten Hag is left alone. And so even though there's growing pains, we need to get you the players, A, to play that system, and B, you need to be given time to implement that on the training ground and in games. And it might not go right to start with, but I actually think this is kind of good because he hasn't obviously coached in the Premier League before. His ideas will be a bit fresh, it'll be a bit new, and it might take other teams quite a while to adapt to that. So this style of play is really interesting, right? Especially when you add in all the good young players that Ajax have either produced or bought, and then he's molded over the last few years. When you start to go through the list, it's very impressive, the players he's taken their careers to the next level.
Yeah, it is. But I think on the other side of that same coin is he hasn't managed in the Premier League. He doesn't have, you can say he doesn't have the experience or the understanding or just the feel of playing in the country. And that can sound a bit silly, but that's a very real thing for managers when they come to the Premier League, especially when you're coming from, and all due respect to the Eredivisie, it is a second-rate league in Europe. It is not one of the big five,
If he's that good of a coach, though, I'm just going to say Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola never managed it. A bit different, but similar kind of task, right? With the resources at the disposal to Manchester United. Similar.
Well, kind of in a league where you're expected to win it every single season. And that's not because you are the manager of a club that has either a board or fans that have unreasonable expectations. You are genuinely supposed to win it every single season if you're Ajax. That's not the case at Manchester United, especially with Manchester City and Liverpool right now. Now that can change very quickly, but being kind of all-time great teams at the same time is a very difficult situation to go into. And so maybe the timelines match up just as United are starting to hit that uptick. Maybe the other two are starting to fall off just given age and getting stale a little bit. But like, I don't know. I question any time there's a manager that hasn't been in one of the big leagues, and especially somebody who seems to be so married to a playing style. He's not really changed much in the time that he's been at Ajax. They've played pretty similar the whole entire time, at least based on what I've seen in the Champions League from them. I don't watch their Eredivisie. I don't go out of my way to seek it out. And I think Nick said something really interesting and a little bit funny there as well. The one manager that they decided to ride out the storm for was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It just speaks to the fact that whoever is making decisions now and whoever has been, it's just been so chaotic, and there's been no plan that's in place, and we've talked about that a million times. But that point right there struck me, and so I just don't know that it will be any different for him coming in, and when it doesn't work immediately, that anything other than, well, he'd never been in the Premier League before, so of course he was going to struggle. Of course this wasn't going to translate, and that's before you even factor in all the changes to the squad that need to happen, because there's a lot of players that won't fit that style, and there's a lot of money on the books that are going to prevent them from signing the players that he does. So it's just there's a million questions, a million and one questions at Manchester United.
Well, you mentioned the money there. I mean, Nick, we're looking at Mauricio Pochettino, seems to be everyone's favorite, but there's talk about PSG wanting over $20 million in compensation to get Pochettino out of his deal early. Ajax only wanted, $2.3 million, I think, to get Erik ten Hag out of his contract early. So that's favorable for United as well from a financial point. So some would say maybe they've gone for the slightly easier.
That's not how you want to hire a manager for Manchester United, though. That's not how you do it.
We're just connecting the dots.
To Joe's point, did Ajax are they just excited about not having to deal with when he's going to go somewhere? Because it feels like it's been 3 years of how, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know what?
I feel like every big job that comes up, he's one of the first names that comes up, which is a good thing. He's obviously doing something right for that to be the case, but he's got a huge job here, Nick. And will he be the most important part of the jigsaw at Manchester United? A manager usually is, but now we have John Murtaugh and we have Darren Fletcher, the football director and the technical director now at Man United, leading this and reporting to Arnold upstairs, and then you have obviously the Glazer family rubber stamping these decisions. But it felt like you said Solskjaer was almost like, because Sir Alex was still involved, they were keeping him around a little bit more because of his relationship with Sir Alex. But if we're just doing this pure cold-hearted football decisions, these guys are now in charge of it. Erik ten Hag, they've chosen him for whatever reason, be it finances or style of play. But now is it all about finding the right players, either buying them or getting rid, right? I mean, Pogba, Ronaldo, you mentioned it there, Maguire. Even guys like Scott McTominay are good young players, but they don't really seem to fit that style of play. The keeping hold of the ball, possessing, wingers cutting in. I mean, like you said, it's good for Rashford, Jadon Sancho, and a few others, but they probably need to bring in a new target forward, new type of midfielders. Hey, great for Donny van der Beek as well, by the way. He must be absolutely delighted with Ten Hag's appointment, right? He played for him for so many years at Ajax. But what players do you think will thrive in his system, and which players do you think are probably on their way out of Manchester United if he does come in?
I mean, almost everyone could be on their way out. The issue that he's going to face, and why there has to be faith, is because I literally pulled up their roster and I'm thinking there are 4 guys that I know should be there next year.
Who are they?
De Gea, Varane, Sancho, and Rashford, and probably Van de Beek. But so maybe 5. But I mean, the problem is you can't unload this many players in 1 year. You can't unload Maguire, Ronaldo, and here's the other thing, and it's super dicey. So I'm not trying to get into this part of the conversation, and you guys know I'm not doing that, but they had a piece in Mason Greenwood, who I think we were all very high on, the way he can hammer a ball with both feet, and he's out of the picture as well. It is, I don't want to use a dramatic term like mess, but they can't fix this in a year just because it can't be settled in one summer. Even if they could trade everybody and bring in a whole new team, that's not going to look anything like you're going to think they'll look until January or February. So how do you calculate who needs to go now? I mean, Pogba is a fantastic player. I really believe that. But I think you need these personalities out of there just for it to feel fresh. What do you do? It's a giant shoulder shrug emoji.
Yeah, I think Pogba can play for a real manager. I'll put it that way. And that's, I guess that's a little disrespectful to the last few that they've had, but none of them have known how to use him. And so I put that down to them as well. I think Bruno is also in that list. You probably just forgot him as well, Nick. So I think there is a possibility that they could be decent. The spine, actually, all those players kind of line up right down the spine, except you're missing the second center back. And the other thing that I would just point out is it's going to be a very short summer off season this year. So the preseason is going to be very short because of the World Cup. And so installing a new manager this summer is going to be even more bumps in the road than it typically would, because he's going to have less time to drill in his ideas and his tactics leading up to the season. So I know this is not what Manchester United do, but you got to be patient.
2 things I want to finish off from me. Number 1, you have to buy players that are young and hungry and can fit into this system. You have to go away from buying the superstar players. I mean, if you need a new number 9, go and buy someone like Darwin Nunez at Benfica, who's up on the up. He's coming through. Erik ten Hag's great success of working with young players at Ajax. And that needs to be Manchester United's model going forward. And I think it will be. They've tried it, bringing in Ronaldo, Pogba and others, and it just hasn't worked out. And secondly, I think you have to build a team. Again, we don't just bring in superstar players. It's not just because you can go out and afford all the best players. That's not what is best for your team as a unit, as a collective. And I think Man United have been guilty of that for so long. And you look at, I see this as a very similar rebuild to the one that Jurgen Klopp had at Liverpool. He came in, took him a while to get out the players he wanted to get out. Guardiola did the same at City for a while with Joe Hart and company, Zabaleta and others that were legends there. But then there were players that came in, especially under Klopp at Liverpool, and no disrespect to them, but did anybody see the impact that Andy Robertson would have, or Wijnaldum, or even someone like Joel Matip? But they are good team players, solid, that can do a job and aren't superstars. And I think Man United fans maybe need to take a bit of responsibility and always asking for the big money signings and the splashy signings. It's time to get away from that and just build a team. And I think Erik ten Hag, that is when he will be successful. He can bring in young players who are hungry to play in the Premier League and are on the rise in their career, rather than just thinking, now I've signed for Manchester United, I've made it. They want to prove themselves, and it has to be that plan, that recruitment plan. Nick, final thought before we go on to the next segment.
Mandatory CONCACAF note. 3 players to keep an eye on. Edson Alvarez is a 24-year-old center of the park guy. Gravenberch is a center of the park guy, 19 years old. And he's had Haller at 3 stops now, or this would be the 3rd stop. He brought him along at Utrecht. He's getting 20 goals out of him at Ajax. I think we all agree that West Ham just wasn't a good fit. You might see him come back too.
So interesting times coming up in Manchester United. Then Erik ten Hag's expected to take over this summer. So much is going to change at Manchester United. Let's see if he is the right man for the job. And over at Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com, we have all the latest Man United news, transfer updates, and more focus on the vision and the philosophy of Erik ten Hag. I think that's the most interesting thing about this guy, is another top-class manager is on his way to the Premier League.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.